So I'm just mixing up light grey using the carbon black and the plasma white or titanium white, and I'm just going to mist over all of the fur on the left hand side underneath the eye, just so we've got something to erase. So I'm just going over with a very light grey. The camera seems to have sorted itself out now finally, so hopefully now you can see that I've gone over with the grey and I'm now just erasing with a glass fibre pen. The camera seems to have sorted itself out now finally, so hopefully now you can see that I've gone over with the grey and I'm now just erasing with a glass fibre pen. Just place very close attention to the direction of the hair in this grey area, because it is quite hard to see. I'm just going in with a bit of grey first, and then I'm erasing, and then I'll go in and mist over the top again, and then I'll erase. But I'm just making sure that I've got the right sense of direction with the actual glass fibre pen when I'm erasing the hairs. Now zoomed in on the camera so you can actually see it a bit better what I'm actually doing with the glass fibre pen. I'm still doing the same as what I did in the ear, because now we're moving on towards the nose. Some of it is going out of focus, so I'm using the Tombow and the dual-sided rubber just to blur some out again and almost make them a complete white highlight. So I'm just misting over the ear now with some plasma white. Whenever I do blurred backgrounds, I generally mist over it with a very faint plasma white or titanium white, which actually pushes it back that little bit further. Bringing in the light grey again on the right hand side towards the right eye and going up onto the head. I've just put some warm umber in the gun, and I'm just bringing in the right hand side background now. And a little bit next to the left eye leading up onto the forehead. Back to carbon black now. A little bit of reducer in it as well, because it's more of a shade in black. And I'm just going to bring in the Whiskers dots and just almost give a sense of where the whiskers are going. So I'll probably shade around the whiskers so I can erase them out later. Got a bit of burnt umber in the gun now, and I'm just going to darken up underneath the warm umber on the right hand side. So when I'm using the blue and white rubber with the red top, that's the Tombow rubber, and that one allows me to kind of clump hairs together. It's a soft rubber, so it's not really where I want to show focused hair. It's more of a sort of blurred hair or highlights. So I'm just clumping a few hairs together using the Tombow, and then I'll probably come in with the glass fibre pen and bring some into focus, because that's a lot sharper and a lot finer. So I'm just misting in with the shading black, as I said, underneath the cheek, if you like, as it goes to the bottom of the mouth. Just shading that in to allow me to come in and erase. Obviously that's a darker area as it turns over. I'm going to reiterate the dots as well. Once I've done a bit of erasing, I'll put the dots back in again. But yeah, just make sure you use the shading black, reduce it down a bit. You can see it's coming out kind of like grey brown kind of colour. So you have to go over, once you reduce it, you have to go over your lines a couple of times for it to be like an opaque black. So it allows us that flexibility to either shade or literally run over the lines a couple of times to make it that much darker. As you can see now, where I've started to use the Tombow and clump a few areas together, you can start to see patches of white within the hair. That's just where I'm almost rubbing back to the white sealer underneath, and I'm just, you know, trying to give the illusion of a highlight. And now we're going to come in and do a little bit more work around the bottom of the eye with the shading black. Right in the corner of the eye there's just loads of little dots, so I'm just doing loads of little dots, and then I'm kind of leading out of the darker areas, almost doing like little dagger strokes out into the fur, so it looks like it's spreading out. Okay, I've now switched to burnt umber, and I'm going to run along across the top of the nose, that real thin line, and there's a little bit of shading. As you can see in the sketch, there's a couple of little pencil lines there that show you where the shading comes to, but I'm going to do the thin line first. Having a bit of an issue with the gun, obviously it's got a blockage at some point, but that's airbrushing. So I've just resolved that problem, and now I'm just going to go in and put that darker line across the top. It's not black, it's burnt umber, okay? So we'll continue on with the left cheek, just adding a bit of shading again with our shading black, and then we'll come back in with the Tombow eraser and start erasing those hairs. When I'm using the Tombow eraser, just to be clear, I'm actually using the corner of the rubber rather than it completely flat to the surface. So what I tend to do is, because the paint picks up on the rubber, I just squeeze the trigger and release a little bit more and then cut the tip off, which gives me a nice sharp edge again, and then I can erase a little bit more, and then eventually that will pick up the paint again, so I have to press the trigger again, cut the tip off, and off I go again. So it stays fresh all the time and a sharp edge to give me the hair look. So I'm using the double-sided eraser now, again to clump more hair together, but also I want a blurred look. So, down by this mouth area, it starts to go a little bit out of focus. So I'm using the double-sided rubber, the blue and the red rubber, to actually clump a few hairs together and make them look a lot more out of focus. I'm doing a bit more wire work now, so I'm just spraying through the wires as we did in the beginning, just to bring a few more underlined darker hairs in on this left hand side. So I'm just using the glass fibre pen now just to bring in the whiskers. I'm just going underneath the whiskers now with a dual-sided eraser, pink on one side, white on the other, and I'm actually using the white area of the pencil because it's a little bit more coarse, and I just want to get some more hair behind those whiskers, and I'll probably clump a few together using the dual-sided eraser, blue and red one. Same process as the left hand cheek. We're just coming in now around the mouth area, just putting in the darker areas with the wires, and then we'll give an overall mist as it's in the shadow, and then we'll come in with our glass fibre eraser and erase all the hairs out, and then we'll probably mist over again. Now I've mixed ultramarine blue and white together to give me kind of like a sky blue colour, and I'm just going to base this in using my shield. I'm just going to fill in the eye, which is going to be our base colour, and then we're going to add other colours on top with some erasing. So I've mixed up a slightly darker blue, and I'm just coming in now with some darker areas in the eye and doing a little bit of misting and shadowing underneath the eyelid, just to make that area a little bit darker. Now I've just added a bit of phthalo green to the dark blue that I had, just to create that darker kind of green look at the top of the eye. So use your dark mix of the blue and add a bit of phthalo green to it, and just mist over the top area. Now I'm just using straight out of the bottle cobalt blue from the Createx illustration range, because it gives me the kind of bright blue that I need around the pupil. Right, now we've kind of finished the colour in the eye. I'm going to go back to black and neaten everything up, like the pupil and around the eye. Bring that black, that sharp black edges back. So I'm just shading around the top of the eye, putting a little bit of texture in and a few little black bits I see in the eye, just using the standard shading black that we have been using. Okay, so that's all the texturing done, the shading and everything like that. We can now look at the highlights. So I'm just going to grab some E-Tac Illustration White. I'm going to cut out a couple of little squares for the highlights. Friends, I'm using application tape, which is like a low-tack masking. And I've just cut out a few little squares and I'm just going to block those in with the plasma white. You can see as I'm spraying, what I'm doing is I'm putting a layer of paint on, then I'm air drying that paint, and then I'm putting another layer on, and then I'm air drying that again. So it takes a little while to build up the opaqueness of the actual white, because we need it to completely be opaque rather than like a transparent white. So I'm just building it up in layers, air drying it, and then putting another layer on. And now what I'll do is I'll actually push out from the white highlight and kind of mist around it. So we should be able to continue on from this point now. I'm just putting some flesh tone in the gun, and we're going to go across the inside of the eye and fill in the nose with just the flesh tone. While I've got the flesh tone in the gun, I can just see a little bit of pink coming through on the cheeks and the mouth, so I'm just misting a little bit of flesh tone in that area too. Just continuing with the flesh tone now on the right hand ear, just filling in some areas in that ear just to pink it up a bit. Then we'll come in with some other colours. So I've now got red ochre in the gun. I'm just going to darken up some areas in the nose and under the eyelid on the right hand side. I'm just shading out from the left to the right. I'm now adding burnt umber, so we're going to start shading the nose now and other areas. Switch back up to red ochre again, and I'm just going to darken and put a bit more texture in the nose. For those of you that this is the first tutorial you're viewing, I'm just using our mottled texture from the Airbrush Art School texture kit. It's just one that we spray through to give us a nice mottled effect. You can be used in rocks, skin, foliage, you name it. I pretty much use it in most of my tutorials. Now I'm going in with carbon black to actually reiterate the nostrils, make those a little bit darker compared to the burnt umber surrounding area. As you can see, I'm just texturing the nose now with the carbon black, and I'm just doing the little bit above the nose with the texture as well, and then I'll come in and I'll raise little bits here and there, push some back, leave some dark, just using the Tombow as well, just to erase a few areas, and I might bring a few highlights out in the actual nose as well. I need to darken the mouth area, so underneath the cheeks and in the mouth area, so we want that completely black as well, so I'll go in with a carbon black there as well. I don't like the highlights that I've put in the top of the nose, so I'm just going to correct that, going back in with the skin tone, then the red ochre, and then shade it with some burnt umber. So we're going to start work on the right hand eye now. I've got burnt umber in the gun and I want to get that shade above the right hand eye. So I'm going to use a shield to protect the blue and the green. When you're using the shields, you may not have a shield that meets the entire shape of the eye. So as long as you've got a curve, then you can use it little bit by little bit and just move it to fit the shape of the map. And then shades just a little area and then join them together basically. But if you watch the tutorial, you can see what I'm doing. I've switched up to carbon black again now, and I'm going to bring in some darker area on this left hand side. So I use the shield in the corner of the eye to get that true sharp shape, and now what I'm doing is I'm using the carbon black just to shade across the burnt umber that we put in earlier and up into the pink area, because I want that to look like it's in a bit of a shadow as well. And then I'm going to come into the eye and put a bit of texture over the green with the carbon black, okay, and then do a little bit of misting. So we'll use our mottled texture just so it doesn't look too uniformed, and then we'll shade over the top. Just putting a light misting of burnt umber over the black as well, and over the green, kind of just misting in a few little areas here and there. It's just a mist, it's not any detail or anything like that. So doing the same as we did in the other eye, we're just going to come in with the Tombow now and create some highlights, or some underlying textures I should say, in the eye. So once you've done your erasing, we need to switch up to Cobalt Blue, Createx Illustration Cobalt Blue, which is the same colour as we used in the centre of the left hand eye. So we're going to do the same principle in this and just add a kind of bit of bright blue. Now to make the eye pop, we're going to add the plasma white or titanium white from ETAC, just bringing out those highlights. Remember how we done it in the first eye. If you want to use a shield first, then use a little bit of paper or application tape, cut your square out, then spray through that, and making sure you air dry first. And once you've done that, then you need to kind of shade out of the highlight to make it softer around. So I've got our dark grey in the gun now that we used to bring in some of the fur. So I'm just going to shade some areas around the eye leading up onto the forehead, and then we'll do some erasing. Same as before, I'm just using the glass fibre pen to bring in the really highlighted hairs that lead out from the eye, the corner of the eye. And then it's quite hard to see the hair in the reference photo, so I'm having to make some of it up, to be honest. But as long as I've got the sense of direction correct, the way the hair is going and the length of the hair, you can't go too far wrong, really. So it's all about laying down a grey mist and then coming in with a glass fibre and, you know, erasing those hairs, and then that will start to give you the shape of the actual the head and the cheek. So you can see when I'm shading with the grey, I'm actually creating the shape like the eye socket underneath the eye. So I'm shading that grey first before I put any hair in. Also down on the cheek, I've almost created like a grey triangle as it leads down from the nose onto the blanket underneath. So that area is going to be in shadow. So I'm actually putting the underlying shape of the face in first, and then I'll come in and I'll add the hair. So I'm mixing up a grey-green kind of colour. So that's just white, black and green. And I'm just going to create a bit of a background, just a mist background behind the cat to bring the cat forward. So because the hairs actually lead into the background, I want to get a background in there first before I start erasing the hairs into the background. I was doing then, but basically there's the colour. You can see it's like a grey green kind of colour, and I've just used my hand to protect the ear and the top of the head, and I've just misted out of it basically, and then I've gone over a couple of lines from a distance still, so it still stays like a blurred look. Just kept going over the same line, so we'll continue from here. So I've got warm umber in the gun now, and I'm just bringing in some soft fur from the right to left into the ear, and I'm going to blend out the background using just putting a mist underneath the grey-green kind of colour. I'm just going to put a warm umber mist underneath that as well. Now we have our background in place, we can start to erase the hairs into the background. But we needed that background in there first before we could do the erasing. So we're going to be doing a lot of erasing with the glass fibre pen now, the same as what we've done on the left hand cheek and on the forehead. We're just going to come around the right hand side with the glass fibre first, putting in those fine hairs, and then where we need to clump together we can use the Tombow or the dual-sided eraser, and where the highlights are, and use the correct eraser to bring out those highlights. So I've got carbon black in the gun now. I'm going to do the little lip underneath the right hand eye, and then I'm just going to work around the rest of the painting and just reiterate some of the blacks that are missing. So just follow the tutorial and see where I'm adding the extra black. If you don't need it, then leave it, but I'm just going over a few areas where I see I need a little bit more black. I'm going to start work now on the right hand side fur. I'm just going to come in with my pencil eraser and just highlight some hairs underneath the nose and anything that I see around the eye that needs sorting, but just generally bringing in textures here and there. I'm using the coarse side of the double-sided eraser, so the white side. Notice as I come out of the chin, I'm just picking a few highlights here and there in the darker area. I'm not actually erasing too much, but as I move out towards the right, I start erasing a hell of a lot more, and just almost kind of leave black spaces or shaded spaces as I'm erasing. So above the line on the blanket, I'm actually using the glass fibre pen because I want it to show up that much brighter because it's in the light. So, and the textures are so much smaller, so they're tiny little dots. So I'm just using little dagger strokes now just to bring the black hair into the background on top of the head. So just doing the final touches now. We're going to grab the X-Acto knife. A bit scary this bit, but I'm sure you'll cope. And we're just doing one single scratch to bring in the whiskers on the eyebrows. While I've got the X-Acto knife in my hand, I'm just going to bring in a couple of extra hairs along the left hand side and over to the right in the ear, and I might bring in some glass fibre just to drag a few more hairs out, but we're pretty much there now. So that's the cat tutorial complete. I hope you enjoyed this one. It's quite a stunning photograph. With the blurred look behind, it really does bring the cat forward. It's quite a difficult one as well with the hair because it was white. It's really hard to show a sense of direction, but I think it's come out really well. So hope you enjoyed it. We'll have more coming up, some puppies and some dogs, etc., and more wildlife. So I hope to see you soon.